Let's check in on this interview that Jesse Waters conducted with Donald Trump and his new running mate, JD Vance. One takeaway, I saw different people taking note of this, and I definitely did, was that Trump, anytime JD Vance had to talk or got to talk, Trump looked annoyed. Annoyed that he had to sit there and not be the one talking, annoyed that JD Vance was talking, and you'll see that play out. And we'll also discuss the substance of these moments. I will also get to, in that similar theme, reporting that potentially there's some regret about selecting JD Vance, which is an interesting phenomenon. Pretty quick regret. But before that, here is moment one.
Mr. President, Senator, I don't know what we have to talk about. It's been pretty boring. Why did you pick JD Vance?
We've always had a good chemistry, and originally JD was probably not for me, but he didn't know me. And then when we got to know each other, he liked me maybe more than anybody liked me, and he would stick up for me, and he'd fight.
Even more than my wife.
He liked me maybe more than anybody liked me, and he would stick up for me, and he'd fight for the worker as much as I fight for the worker. We just had an automatic chemistry. And I actually endorsed him in Ohio for the Senate. And he ended up winning against a very tough field. And he wrote a book which was a classic, as you know. And it was all about the working men and women and how they aren't being treated fairly. And he was right about that. And I understood that maybe better than anyone else. And we just have had a great relationship. And he had serious competition. We had tremendous people, all of them, every one of them.
You beat out a lot of...
And before getting to JD Vance's first chance to speak, so much is telling about that clip. Why did you select JD Vance? You know how, before I get to the rest of that, do you know how right now we're hearing this, I'll just say, racially charged talking point from much of MAGA that Kamala Harris is a DEI pick? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And underlying that point, the justification for it, according to them, is, well, because Kamala Harris is not qualified, so it's her identity that is making her qualified in the minds of liberals. Which is a very strange point to make when she was the district attorney of a major city, the attorney general of the largest state in the United States, the senator from that state, and then the vice president of the United States. How do you get more qualified to be president than that? That's some pretty good training, a pretty good resume. But they still assert that because they say their principle is we just think the most qualified person should be in that position. Again, I think that's quickly debunked when you look at her qualifications. But then they're totally okay with Trump saying the reason he picked JD Vance is not because he's the most qualified. Did you hear a qualification? It was because we have good chemistry and he really likes me now. Yeah, he said I might be America's Hitler, but he didn't know me then. That's what Trump was referencing. Now he's treated me very well. He's defended me. And then you can see Trump go, oh, wait, I'm giving too much away about how I think. And also he is a fighter for the workers, but really it's about our chemistry. Yeah.
Very important people.
Very impressive people.
When you got the call and found out, what did your wife say?
Well, he asked to speak to my wife, actually, which I was very appreciative of, and so was she. But she was just kind of flabbergasted. I think that going into it, we had no idea really what was going on, whether he would pick me or Marco Rubio, great guy, Doug Burgum, great guy, and a lot of other good people. But, you know, when the president called me, I don't know if you remember this.
I think that Trump feels visceral pain. Like, he's physically in pain whenever he has to listen to other people talk. When it's not his voice that he's hearing, he just really is not, he's not happy. Or not him being asked about as well. He can listen to you if you're complimenting him or asking a question about himself. Before getting to the next moment from this interview, Newsweek is reporting on this amid Joe Biden ending his re-election campaign. Rumors are emerging that Donald Trump is regretting his choice of running mate. It goes through, of course, the Trump campaign is completely denying that. But then you have this quote, most striking thing I heard, this is from an Atlantic staff writer, from Trump allies yesterday was the second guessing of JD Vance, a selection they acknowledge that was born of cockiness, meant to run up margins with the base in a blowout rather than persuade swing voters in a nail biter. So essentially, this is coming from Tim Alberta of The Atlantic. Essentially, the point being made there is that JD Vance wasn't taken super seriously as a pick from the Trump campaign. It was someone Trump clearly liked. There was reporting that the Trump kids got Trump to pick JD Vance because they personally like JD Vance, or run up the margins among the bases as it was described there. But it wasn't contemplating very thoughtfully which candidate would help Trump in what may be a nail biter. Because at that time, in their world, whether you believe this was justified or not, they were thinking, we're going to crush Biden either way. And now what we're seeing across, as we'll talk about more today, across right-wing media is panic. Sheer and utter panic over Kamala Harris. And for all their talk about how she could never win, their actions tell a very different story. And so now they're thinking, wait, should we have thought more closely about this pick, is what the reporting is. And that is absolutely hilarious. Quick pause from your viewing of this video to request that you subscribe if you're not already to this channel. We've heard some people saying that they'll subscribe and then check back later and they're unsubscribed. That's not good. So if you could make sure that you are subscribed, even if you think that you are, I would greatly appreciate it. Back to the video. Here's another moment where I think this one I grabbed just because Trump looks annoyed when JD Vance starts speaking.
Was in trouble because they saw the blood immediately because it was over here.
And sir, the media always slanders these crowds as, you know, MAGA extremists, and of course they slander the president too. And it really is, I think, a testament to the movement, how calmly people responded to it. That's definitely.
Oh gosh, shut up. And then here's more.
They were monitoring this guy for an hour beforehand.
Yeah.
No one told you not to take the stage?
No, nobody mentioned it. Nobody said there was a problem. And I would have waited for 15. They could have said, let's wait for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, something. Nobody said, I think that was a mistake. The Secret Service, they call them snipers, but he was, world-class shot. I guess he didn't want to take the shot. I can understand that one a little bit because maybe he didn't see, maybe he doesn't know. You don't want to shoot somebody if the person's not going to be carrying a gun. I don't know if they had a gun. They had a policeman that actually saw the man with a gun, and you would have thought that that would have been conveyed to other people. So there were some mistakes. But I can tell you this, just to go on the more positive side, the people on the stage were unbelievable and brave. They were all Secret Service that came running up, and they were running past bullets. Bullets were, when I went down, bullets were coming over my head, and you hear them. It's like a zip, zip. So I'm lucky I went down fast, but I don't even consider that the lucky part. I consider the lucky part turning exactly right in the one position.
So just some reflection there on the assassination attempt, and then this.
All of the things that we've gone through over the last period of time.
And sir, I think it illustrates something that's so different about the Trump administration versus the Biden administration. Is, look, screw-ups sometimes happen, even very big screw-ups, but it's the responsibility of leaders to stand before the country and say, all right, we screwed up. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to answer questions and do it in public. I think that the fact that there's been no transparency here is what makes a lot of us say, well, what the hell happened, and why, are we actually taking steps to ensure it doesn't happen again?
If you're elected, you can declassify the assassination attempt files. You could clear things up like that. You'll do that, right?
I would, yeah, sure. There should be nothing to hide here.
It's his decision.
I think, frankly, but I think, frankly, many things are known right now. But some of the things that are known are bad. How did somebody get on that roof, and why wasn't he reported? Because people saw that he was on the roof. I mean,
Yeah, so I will say, setting aside the conversation of the potential regret and Trump just not seeming to like handing the microphone to JD Vance at any point, this conversation, some interesting elements to it, but also a part of it is we haven't seen the accountability that we need to see for the failure that occurred. And I do agree, something that rarely happens with what is being said about there needs to be accountability and answers and all that. MAGA is jumping into conspiracy theory territory often. That's not helping, but we should have transparency and answers given to what the failure was that allowed for the shooter to get so close there to assassinating a presidential candidate. And I will say the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, has announced since this interview was published that she will be resigning. We talked about this hearing yesterday where she was told even by Democrats like Jamie Raskin to resign. And I was saying, I think if for no other reason, just to show the American people, I understand I've lost your trust, and leaders in Congress, I've lost your trust. And as a show of how seriously the Secret Service is taking this failure, I'm going to go ahead and resign. And that's what she's doing. She's resigning. And so that I do think is the correct choice. Hopefully her replacement can very quickly get a handle on things, because as I mentioned, a resignation of the Secret Service director at this critical moment is a little bit frightening, given that we need the best organization, the best coordination and leadership at a time where we have conventions going on, Kamala Harris now extra security, JD Vance, Trump, whoever Kamala Harris picks as her running mate, Biden still has his protection, and all this stuff leading the election is a lot of a burden on Secret Service. And so hopefully that will be managed effectively, even with a transition of leadership. But the fact that so many mistakes seem to be made does justify a change in leadership. Again, even if Kimberly Cheadle herself thinks that she didn't do anything wrong in her management of the broader Secret Service apparatus to allow for this individual incident to happen, or she thinks someone on the ground there, more local leaders to blame, she needs to show how seriously this is being taken. So that's important. Also, while we can acknowledge that, what I'm really afraid about is that this event will be used to justify even more federal law enforcement demonization on the part of MAGA, them wanting to defund the FBI. Right now, the FBI is conducting an investigation into this. And in the interview, JD Vance was saying, I don't trust the FBI leadership to handle this investigation into the assassination attempt. And we've seen Marjorie Green call for the defunding of the FBI and wanting to, Matt Gaetz even suggesting potentially abolishing some of these organizations. And so this will, if we see a second Trump term, be further justification for that sort of attack on federal law enforcement. And that is not to the benefit of anyone. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. If you want to get extra content daily, an extra episode of the show, and support the work we do, you can do so by clicking the join button below.